I'm talking to Brett Weiner from Verbatim, the Ferguson case. Thank you for coming to Dallas. How's this film been doing?
It's wonderful, and I think the audiences are really engaged. It's part of the Shorts program, so got a lot of cool, interesting questions, a lot of people talking to me about it, and it's really fun to screen at festivals like this, and I really enjoy it.
So, since you're dealing with something that is such a hot topic now, really isn't just the Ferguson case anymore. It's multiple cases that are involved now. How do you approach that as a filmmaker?
So the approach for this specific piece of material was to say, so the quick background is, the short is the grand jury transcripts from the Michael Brown shooting case, presented verbatim with actors acting it out. And what I tried to do was say, can I, for those 16 minutes of the film, put the audience in the seat of the grand jury to help have a little bit better understanding of why the grand jury made the decisions they did. So, I sort of remove the broader context, which is always there sort of in people's minds, I'm sure, but to try to really focus in on the logistics of what people said happened there and how that was presented to the grand jury in hopefully kind of a dramatically compelling way, so people can watch the film and not be bored or something, right? So the approach is very much a outsider's sort of clinical perspective into the specific legal logistics of the case a little bit.
I remember a director who was doing a fictional short mentioned that the more specific you make a character or situation, the more universal it becomes to people. Would you agree, looking at a film like this? Yeah,
I would totally agree. And if people watch the film, which is online right now, it's part of the New York Times OpDocs series, so people can Google New York Times OpDocs and check it out. There's a lot of specific things they say about their area, both the police officer and the witness that was with Michael Brown at the time. The police officer thinks it's kind of an anti-police area and it has his perspective, and the witness, he has to basically talk to friends to see if he can avoid the police when he goes outside because he's afraid they'll hassle him for no reason. So there's a lot of, universal different perspectives that are sort of skirting in this film, on the outskirts of this film, that I don't address directly, but are kind of in there to try to give people a little bit of that understanding.
So is that what appealed to you, the legal aspect of it, or do you have a specific opinion about the case?
I think what appealed to me was when I was trying to understand the case, I felt like there was a lot of noise and a lot of I call it a rage click environment, where it's like, what's the most angry title I can make so I can rage click on this thing? And I was like, can I get away from that? Can I connect people to the primary source of this in a dramatically compelling way and maybe have that understanding? So my perspective was very much how do I present something that's a less subjective film to people so they can have just that little bit more understanding and be appropriate with it.
That brings up a lot of interesting questions about film. One of the first things that our professors tried to impress on us in my film school was that nothing is objective. It will always be so subjective. Yeah,
that's completely 100% true. Nothing's objective, and so you can't really set out and make a completely objective film. It's not possible.
Even a documentary.
Just metaphysically, it's not possible. Even a documentary, of course, but you can have different levels of subjectivity in the work, and so part of my job hopefully was to strip out some of the subjectivity there to make something that's less subjective. Of course it's subjective. I had to pick and choose moments to put in the film, and maybe that's a conversation that people will want to have with me specifically, which I'm welcome to have, but really appropriate and responsible were kind of the guidelines for trying to make this thing in a way that felt dramatically compelling without going overboard, and felt like it made sense to everybody.
Would you adopt this approach again, or do you feel like the Ferguson case was kind of the specific moment in time to do this?
Yeah, well, it's a series with the New York Times, the case. So I don't know. It's interesting. It depends what I do next. There are some things that are comedies, so I have a comedic take on it that's pretty strong. That's definitely a perspective. There's some stuff that's a little bit more drama that I do also have a perspective on. But I think if I decide to do something that's sort of so out there and so discussed, it might be nice to take this approach again and say okay, let's back off everything that you think you know, and let's see if you can put you on the ground a little bit and maybe have you learn some things you may not have known.
Well, one more time before you go, where can people go? Tell us about this New York Doc Ops again so that people can go check this out.
So if you go to the New York Times, it's part of the OpDocs section, and if you Google Verbatim, the Ferguson case, or New York Times, or all of them together, hopefully, it'll pop up, and they've syndicated it to sort of their player and YouTube and Vimeo and all these other places.
Well, congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me here.
Thanks for being here. Hope to see you again.
Yeah, great.